Have you ever seen a cat with 4 ears? What about a domestic yeti or a holder of unusual marble coloring? I'm sure these fluffy creatures will surprise you. In today's episode, you'll know about the rarest cats on the planet. We start with one unusual shot that I found on the web recently. It depicts a cat, not a simple but a three-headed one. If the source is to be trusted, the pet is called Jake. He's been living with the mutation for several years. Unfortunately, the author preferred to stay anonymous, which makes the story less trustworthy. However, the photo has undergone a multiple check by professionals. They didn't discover any trace of editing on it. What do you think? Can a cat with 3 heads exist? For some reason, it seems to me that yes, he can. What's more, for certain, there are cats with 2 heads. One of them is Biscuit. This beauty was born in Oregon, whereas his mother was a usual stray cat. Kind people noticed its rounded belly and allocated a shelter to it so that the labor would be successful. Specialists say that it's because of this voluntary gesture why this kitten with abnormalities came into the world. As you can notice, Biscuit has 2 nice snouts. In science, we can call it diprosopis, the rarest congenital pathology. As a result, parts of the face, or the whole one, is duplicated. What's interesting, animals with this peculiarity can live a normal life. There are many examples in history when cats with 2 snouts lived for 15 years or more. The only problem Biscuit and any other creature with 2 faces has is eating, of course. According to people, it's very difficult to feed the kitten with milk. Eared Midas. An animal with 2 or 3 heads is unusual, of course. However, I was not any less surprised by the cat Midas with 4 ears and 2 hearts. You must admit that the cat looks alien from the outside. It's curious that all her brethren were born normal. It's only she that looks like a special one. If you think about the creature's hearing, you shouldn't worry. Everything's fine with it. Veterinarians said that additional small ears do not participate in forming a sound picture in the animal. The most attentive reminder that it's not 2 ears alone that the cat stands for. After all, I've already told you that Midas also has 2 hearts. Can it be possible? Does she really have a second one, just in store to say so? Of course, she doesn't. Look at this photo and you'll understand everything at once. The second heart of Midas is white, furry, and very beautiful. It's drawn on its belly. Leave a like if you also think that it's impossible not to fall in love with this cat. Just as you cannot but fall in love with our next guest, a bifacial cat nicknamed Narnia. Its snout is evenly divided in half. As her hostess says, the pet's face consists of 50% tenderness and 50% kindness. Seems to me everything fits together. Narnia was born in March 2007 under supervision of a professional cat breeder from France. Yes, as well as any pedigree cat, he was also given a surname, de la Gras. As his hostess says, the cat is rather shy. Each time when they have guests, he hides. This is one of the aspects the woman plans to work on hard. She's sure that the whole world should see her pet. It's not each day when you can meet a cat with a 2-colored snout and fine blue eyes. As soon as the whole internet learnt about this wonder, he started to visit exhibitions and attract the attention of spectators. Unfortunately, the girl, and concurrently Narnia's hostess, has not posted any video clips with her pet for the last 4 years. This remains unclear what's happened and what they're doing now. Two-faced Venera. As you've already understood, now I'll tell you about another fine cat with a 2-colored snout. Its name is Venera. At first sight, you get the impression that she came to us from another planet, or at least came into contact with aliens. Her appearance is too unusual. You've already noticed that the face of the cat is half black and half golden red. In addition, her right eye is green and the left one is blue. Venera has really puzzled all the authorized feline specialists by her existence. People didn't even guess that you could meet such a unique and rare cat. After all, let her just have different colored eyes or a snout. But when it's both this and that, we can talk about a new level. Though some will say that a new level is when you don't look like other cats in principle. Right, like this Yeti cat. This beauty named Richie bears more resemblance to a mystic creature than to an ordinary pet cat. The black, smoky Maine Coon seems to wear some additional coat on its natural one. This is because people on the internet jokingly call him a Yeti cat or a lemur cat. This creature was born in 2020 and almost at once became popular due to his host who shared his photos and videos in social networks. In response to the question how Richie became a part of their family, the hostess said that she had 2 cats at home, living together with her for about 20 years. For this period of time, she experienced a lot of incredible feelings and understood that she would have not been able to live without a cat at home. When her 2 pets died, the girl took a careful approach to the choice of a cat and turned to an experienced breeder for help. He recommended that she choose this Maine Coon. When the kitten was small, he didn't stand out for anything. The hostess was incredibly lucky. She was lucky both in terms of the visual appearance of the cat and his behavior. According to the hostess, Richie is a sociable and curious cat that adores playing with other animals. He likes being in a company and never breaks the rules. Seemingly, it's not for nothing that Maine Coons are respected for their intelligence and affection to their hosts. Spangles. That's how our next pet is called. His peculiar feature can be noticed at once. He's skew-eyed from birth. But don't worry, as specialists say, in the case with this cat, the squinting is a congenital feature that doesn't get in the way of a normal life. It's very likely that the cat doesn't even guess that there's something wrong with his eyes. He can hunt, orient himself in space, and keep balance. In general, a similar phenomenon in the world of animals is very rare. It can touch one of 2 eyes. Squinting is usually explained by muscle pathologies of the eye bulb or nervous fibers that give a signal to muscles. And here you'll have to specify. There's nothing bad about it, only when this is a congenital peculiarity. But if a cat came into the world without abnormalities and acquired squinting in the course of its life, you should turn to specialists and try to cure your 4-legged friend. Interestingly, it's not obligatory that you do this surgically, so you don't have to worry ahead of time. Angry Barbara. Some cats, like one from the previous story, have unusual eyes, whereas others look askew. Though these peculiar features are alike, they look differently. Barbara, for example, always seems to be grumbling, as if she were dissatisfied with everything happening around her. Interestingly, according to the hostess, the 4-legged resident of New York has been looking evilly at the whole world for her whole life. This is why the cat was labeled an aggressive animal at the shelter. As you understand, they did it in vain. Unexperienced specialists took Barbara for a simple, sinister cat, whereas in fact she wished anybody no bad. It's just her unusual snout that she's had since birth, and you'll do nothing about this. Despite the fact that Barbara always looks angry, she will definitely get into paradise if such cute cat angels like these meet her. No, this is not a sheer calembour. These fluffy creatures have wings in reality, as well as angels from the most ancient sayings do. Cat angels are encountered rarely. That's why scientists couldn't believe in this mutation. They thought it was the result of Photoshop, editing, or just a 1 in a million case. But when people from the whole world were convinced otherwise, this is where the most interesting thing started. The main scientists scratched heads over this peculiarity of cats, the things they proposed. At first, they put forward versions concerning their long fur that was twisted into a ball. Then they started talking about some skin disease causing their skin to sag. In a nutshell, nobody could properly explain these wings. After all, apart from such a surprising appearance, cats could even move them. The truth became known just several years later. Unfortunately, these angels were not sent to us from paradise. They were ordinary mutants that had several genes broken in the embryo phase that were responsible for limbs. The body was programmed to create 2 more forelegs. However, as those were excessive, they didn't develop normally and turned into wings. That's why cats can move them, let this be just slightly. The given feature is rare. For the last 2 centuries, we know about 150 cases. Fortunately, all these cats live a normal life, with this peculiarity not getting in the way of their normal life. Leave a like if you would also be pleased to look at flying cats. It seems to me that it would be absolutely tough. Sam with thick eyebrows. Today we've already looked at different cats. Some of them had wings, others two stouts, still others a unique coloration. You may think that the fantasy of Mother Nature has to end. No, it extended itself on cats with eyebrows. The character of this story, nicknamed Sam, is purely white with the only remarkable nuance, two black stripes that look like brows from the outside. Due to this feature, the cat has an incredible face as if he were upset or troubled with something. But fortunately, as the host of the four-legged creature says, the cat lives like a pig in a clover. Firstly, their house is situated in New York. Secondly, Sam is a real celebrity there. He has a vast number of subscribers and social networks and a lot of true fans. What's more, as you may have noticed, this animal is insanely photogenic. Looking at his photos, you cannot help but smile. Marble Scrappy. For sure, what nicknames hosts give to their pets. As you've already understood, we'll talk about a cat with a coloration that's very similar to that of a marble. Scrappy was born in 1997 and was completely black in the beginning. Just several years later, he started to grow white. As a result, he became the owner of a unique pattern. This thing is called vitiligo. It's a distracted pigmentation, showing itself as the melanin pigment disappearing on separate skin areas. It's incredibly rare for cats. If specialists are to be trusted, it doesn't take its toll on their health. Just like in people, vitiligo is of exclusively visual nature. Predisposition to vitiligo can be inherited. However, as the breeder said, Scrappy's parents were ordinary animals. That's why nobody knows the reason why he changed his color this way. As for Phil, our next cat, he's had huge paws since birth. He saw the light with polydactyly. This is when an animal has more toes than usual. The kitten has 7 fingers on both forelegs and toes on one of the hind legs, with 6 toes on his second hind leg. Seemingly, his mother found him too weak and disowned him. Fortunately, the poor one was quickly found by people that took him to the shelter. After a while, the cat was given to a loving and caring family. Phil's life became more than happy. As the host of the big-pawed creature said, the pet turned out to be of good manners, quiet and kind. When the man works, Phil lies nearby, trying not to bother him. Just sometimes he reminds his host of his presence, giving him a hand with 7 fingers, and the man slightly shakes it in response. It also turned out that Phil likes taking warm baths together with his host, not being afraid of water. In addition, due to his wide paws, Phil can massage his friend pleasantly by walking along his back. Well, I think this couple has found each other, which is absolutely marvelous. Werewolf cat. What do you think our next guest will look like? Maybe does he change his appearance during the full moon? Come on, this would be too tough even for Mother Nature. In fact, this pet was dubbed as a zombie cat because of his excessive fur and an obsessive desire to nibble something. First things first. The story of this pet began in 2014 when a small, fluffy creature of the Persian breed found his place in the veterinarian clinic at the shelter. People found him in the street completely on his own. Veterinarians examined the little one and didn't find any abnormalities. As luck would have it, a girl who worked at the shelter had dreamt of a pet for a long time, and she incredibly liked that cat. She couldn't give a clear description of her feelings, but understood that the cat belonged with her. The shelter director gave his consent, and the girl took the animal to her house. Just a weekend passed by, whereas they both could not imagine their lives without each other. To such an extent did their affection develop. The most interesting thing was still ahead. The cat had his own peculiar features, but veterinarians did not find them. The cat started to always nibble at his claws, and his fur grew quickly. The girl repeatedly took him to a specialist. This time she was given a comprehensive answer. Her pet had a congenital disease known as hypertrichosis, or the werewolf syndrome. It shows itself by uncontrollable hair growth and increased claw growth. As for our next cat, judging by his appearance, he has uncontrollable muscle growth. In 2018, a resident of Canada posted these photos on the web and attracted the public's attention. Everybody wanted to get a closer acquaintance with this muscular cat. By any measures, it's far from daily that you can encounter this. Looking at this pet, you get the impression that he hits the gym and takes some steroids. That's how remarkable his muscle mass is. It's interesting. What's his secret? What's the first thing we think of when it comes to pets? I think most people immediately think of dogs and cats, hamsters, pigs, or parrots, but definitely not crocodiles. However, the people of Indonesia have a completely different view on this. In 1997, a man named Mohammed bought a small, very young crocodile for a few bucks. It was caught by fishermen, and no one knows what they would have done with him. It was sort of a goodwill gesture by Mohammed. But the years passed, the crocodile grew, and the affection for him among the man's entire family gradually increased. Since then, the reptile has managed to reach a weight of 440 pounds. Not only the members of Mohammed's family, but even their neighbors liked the crocodile. Kojak, that's the reptile's name, is not aggressive at all. Despite the fact that there are 3 small children in the house, the crocodile doesn't hurt any of them. He simply lives his life peacefully in the backyard pool, eats what's offered, and patrols the neighborhood. Such a good-natured reptile is visited by tourists from different cities and even countries. One of them was even ready to buy the crocodile for $75,000, but the owner didn't part with the family favorite. I think this is one of the most unusual pets that people have. It's even hard to imagine a more dangerous and at the same time extraordinary pet. A millionaire dog. When a wealthy person passes away, their entire fortune is usually inherited. However, if there are no suitable people, the money can be given to some charitable foundation or to a pet. This dog, named Gunther VI, became a millionaire this way. The dog was the inheritor of the eccentric German Countess Carlotta Liebenstein, who died in 1992 and had no inheritors. But she loved animals very much, so she bequeathed millions to her pet, Gunther III. The pets changed, the Gunther dynasty became bigger and bigger, and now Gunther VI has inherited a fortune that's grown to $500 million thanks to real estate investments. Am I the only one who can hardly imagine how exactly a dog could invest in anything? Okay, it was actually the work of a regular employee close to the family who handled the money. I mean, he bought the dog an incredible mansion, arranged flights on his private jet, and so on. I bet he also put some of the money in his own pocket, which makes the decision to leave the inheritance to the dog seem a bit rash and strange to me. Almost immediately after buying the property, Gunther and his trusted persons appeared at an auction in Italy where they bought a rare mushroom, a white truffle, for $3 million. It turns out that the rich dog adores this elite delicacy, cooked by a personal chef. Many people believe that the dog himself, as well as these stories, are nothing more than a common project to attract attention. But be that as it may, Gunther's money and real estate exist, and the four-legged creature lives better than many directors of large corporations and banks. The purring Merlin. Moving on to other animal records, we have the cat who loves to purr more than others in the world. His name is Merlin, and he got into the Guinness Book of World Records as the cat with the loudest purr. This pet comes from England. His owner took him from the shelter when the cat was a couple of years old. She took care of him, showed him what life can look like, and he repaid her in full. He made her and their common house famous. One afternoon, for the sake of interest, the woman decided to check the volume of her cat's purring. He was very loud and sometimes even prevented her from sleeping properly. The app showed record-breaking 100 decibels. This was an unbelievable value, and the woman immediately appealed to the Book of Records. An independent expert examination arrived with the help of professional equipment, and people found that the volume was actually about 70 decibels, which was still more than enough to set the record. By the way, for the comparison, the purr of an ordinary domestic cat averages 25 decibels. Doesn't your tail get in the way? This question has been addressed more than once to the wolfhound in the following story, who made it into the Book of Records for a reason. The name of this handsome creature is Cian, which means brave warrior in Irish. This perfectly characterizes the wolfhound because he's always calm and never shows aggression. At the same time, he's ready to stand up for the weak. But the dog became famous for another reason. He is the owner of the longest tail in the world. The length of Keon's tail is almost 31 inches. The Guinness World Record staff visited the owner's home in Belgium, presented an official certificate, and recorded the cutest video with the record breaker. I wonder what caused him to have such a long tail. Probably genetics played its role, because Irish wolfhounds are quite large and statuesque dogs. They're one of the biggest and at the same time tallest in the world. Until the 15th century, they were called Irish Greyhounds. Every county in Ireland was obliged to have at least 24 representatives of this breed. It was believed to be the only way to protect a household from wolf attacks. Simba. Some have incredibly long tails, while others have something fantastic happening with their ears, or rather, it's already happened. The ears of this goat from Pakistan are very long, to put it mildly. What's even more amazing is that this beauty was born just a few weeks before the record was set. So these long ears are nothing but a congenital trait. But what would cause it? Scientists have been thinking about this question for a long time, but have not come up with anything concrete. Each of his ears is over 18 inches long. When the goat walks, the ears follow him right along the ground. And there's nothing that can be done about it. The owner hopes that his domestic animal can make it into the Guinness Book of World Records. The only thing preventing them is that there's no corresponding category there yet. The book sets records for the length of dogs' ears, but they've never dealt with goats before. Do you think it's worth adding a new record? Or is this an isolated case that is unlikely to ever happen again? Share your thoughts in the comments. Speaking of dogs and records, people keep track of how long their dog's tongues are and set records in this category. But you shouldn't run to your pet right now and ask it to pull out its tongue. It's not likely to break the record of a dog named Zoe. At the time when she was only 3 years old, her tongue had already reached almost 5 inches in length. I think such body features are hard to miss. Zoe is not a special breed of dog with long tongues. She's a simple Labrador and German Shepherd mix. It's unknown why her tongue suddenly became longer than a soda can. When this beauty was born in the house of the owners, people from the first days noticed that she strangely holds her tongue. It was always sticking out, but at first it was written off as a peculiarity of the bite. As time passed, the tongue became more noticeable. After which, people appealed to the Book of Records and got good news. Zoe's tongue is not a problem for the animal. The dog lives a beautiful, cheerful, and carefree life. Such a peculiarity of the body doesn't get in the way of her living. On the contrary, in many ways, it even helps the dog. Good old Bobby. Dogs are man's best friend. They'll never leave their companions in trouble. They jump into the water and run to rescue them from fire. They can cheer us up and distract us from problems. In general, they're very useful. It's not surprising that a huge number of people have a dog at home. The only thing that cannot please is the duration of their life. On average, dogs live about 10 to 13 years. Parting with a friend with whom you've lived for so long is incredibly difficult. However, you may be lucky enough to have your dog live for more than 30 years, just like Bobby the dog, recognized as the oldest dog in the world at the moment. He celebrated his 31st birthday in May of 2023. In honor of such a celebration, the owner threw a party. What could be better than 31 years spent side by side with a loyal and beloved dog? That's right, only 32 years can be better than that. So we wish Bobby to celebrate his birthday with the family more than once. Baby Pearl. Well, for some people, the choice of a dog is based on its age. For others, the size of the pet is a key factor. Many people don't like big dogs and prefer smaller dogs, such as the Chihuahua. But did you know that in the world of already tiny Chihuahuas, there might be an extra small dog? This little one named Pearl weighs just about a pound at the age of 2. The four-legged friend is smaller than a TV remote and about as long as a dollar bill. It's hard to believe, but it's true. While some brag about their petite size, others complain about fate and say that they got big bones from nature. Among these guys is this cat, who's considered one of the fattest in the world. The big cat weighs no less than 40 pounds. This is not a natural feature, as you might think. It's the result of unhealthy diet, which was kept on by his previous owners. Patches, that's the poor guy's name, ended up at a shelter where he was taken under his new owner's kind and caring wing. They'll try to get one of the fattest cats in the world back into shape. Vets say that it's more than real. Which of these cases surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments and keep watching. I'll show you more giant record-breaking animals. The Dominican Republic monster. The Dominican Republic is an exotic place that everyone wants to visit. Colorful atmosphere, unusual old cars, everything is so beautiful and new to a modern person. And here we are, ready to buy tickets and go to paradise on Earth. But then we see this video. In the Dominican Republic, they found a huge snake which was so gigantic that they could only lift it with an excavator. Judging by the comments of the workers in the video, people were doing their usual jungle clearing when suddenly they came across this creature. Special equipment was brought in to remove it from the construction site, and when they managed to grab the snake with the bucket and lift it in the air, its body was still literally touching the ground on both sides. People were so amazed by the size of this creature that they began to joke that this was some kind of ancient dinosaur survived to this day. It's still unclear what species the giant in the video belongs to. Moreover, there are those who write it all off as fake. Do you think this video could be fake? And if not, what kind of snake did people encounter? It's not just living things that people find, right? Sometimes they also come across discoveries related to creatures that have already passed away. Nevertheless, this doesn't prevent them from understanding what giants walked the earth many years ago. For example, archaeologists involved in excavations in southern Israel told the world about a tusk of a giant elephant that lived about 500,000 years ago. To give you better understanding, the size of the found object is as follows: 8.5 feet in length and about 8 inches in diameter. So far, it's not been possible to determine which species the tusk belongs to. However, scientists have already made an assumption concerning the size of the creature. It must have been more than 13 feet tall and weighed about 15 tons. Researchers speculate that the elephant with the giant tusk might have become prey of a local tribe that lived in these territories at the time. The biggest bear. Fortunately, the research of scientists and archaeologists did not end with the giant elephant. People also found the remains of the biggest bear in history, belonging to the species Arctotherium angustidens. Just imagine a bear which, in an upright position, reaches 15 feet in height. And this wasn't the limit, as scientists identified the creature as a fairly young male. At the same time, the giant weighed about 1,760 pounds. The research said that the creature's skull and jaw were well preserved, and part of its pelvis, a fragment of one of its humerus, and 6 articulated vertebrae were recovered. The bear's fangs were 2 inches long. They were extremely powerful and ready to tear its prey to pieces at any moment. The giant bear roamed Argentine lands more than 700,000 years ago, and its remains were found at a depth of 30 feet. According to scientists, the animals they find here fell into the mire while hunting or drinking water. This is why they're so easy to find, and also why they're in perfect condition. Gertie the rhino. Black rhinos can exceed 10 feet in height and weigh about 2 tons. They're distinguished by their powerful build, sharp horns, and rather aggressive character. The front long horn of the black rhino helps it disperse vegetation, and the extensive lower lip gives it the ability to uproot the grass. These animals live in the thickets, but not far from water. They like to swim and wallow in the mud. In this way, they manage to get rid of parasites on their skin. Here's an interesting fact. In the life of rhinos, there are their lifesavers, tortoises as well as oxpeckers. These creatures peck mites out of the rhino's skin. Oh, I wish mites were bigger, then rhinos could fight them for sure. If mites tried to crawl away, rhinos could catch up with them and beat them properly. Yeah, they would. Although these creatures seem clumsy considering their size, in fact, they can accelerate up to 31 miles per hour. By the way, Gertie the rhino, which you see now, was capable of exactly this and more. It was filmed in 1950, and since then it's considered the largest recorded black rhino. It's very hard to stand out against such giants, but Gertie managed to do it. Whale shark. The phrase, "the largest shark," may conjure up an association with a terrifying top predator, the menace of the world ocean, capable of attacking the largest representatives of fauna. However, as it often happens, expectations do not demonstrate reality. In the animal world, large size, on the contrary, in most cases means getting away from the daily hustle and bustle and fighting for the last piece of meat. Giants are much calmer and satisfied with themselves. They don't like to get into battles because they don't see the point in them, and they don't compete with anyone. They just come, take what's theirs, and leave. The whale shark is no exception to this, especially since it's probably larger than even the legendary megalodon. Well, at least some whale sharks are definitely bigger than the prehistoric top predator. The average length of this shark varies between 33 and 39 feet, although there are giant individuals of 59 to 66 feet long. Just look how huge this shark is compared to the average human. And this is far from being the largest of the species. This is a young shark that decided to swim in the waters of the Pacific Ocean together with humans. If you really want to encounter a whale shark, but are afraid you cannot distinguish it from other sharks, don't worry. If not by size, then you'll never confuse it because of its square head and bottomless mouth. By the way, its mouth has up to 15,000 small teeth located in several rows, which makes this fish the toothiest creature on the planet. It's funny, but these teeth don't play any role in capturing food. Apparently, during the creation of the whale shark, Mother Nature just decided to have some fun. And now, since we're talking about its mouth, let me tell you about how the whale shark feeds. In fact, its name has something to do with it. This huge fish feeds like whales do, by sucking up anything that gets in its way. It can be small crustaceans, krill, plankton, and so on. The whale shark has several ways to feed on plankton. It can swim forward with its mouth open, or it can dramatically open its mouth next to a large amount of prey. The food particles are then filtered through a special filter formed by the cartilaginous outgrowths of the visceral arches. The water escapes through the gills, and the food enters the esophagus and into the stomach. Thus, the whale shark sucks water through the oral cavity constantly and in huge quantities. Lion's mane jellyfish. And now let's check out the giant jellyfish that was filmed in the Far Eastern Marine Reserve. The diameter of the jellyfish bell of this species can exceed 6.5 feet, and the length of its tentacles can exceed 98 feet. Before us is one of the lion's mane jellyfish, predatory and at the same time insanely beautiful jellyfish. The principle of its hunting is quite simple. It opens the tentacles and activates the sting cells. And if for a person its sting is dangerous only by burning and allergies, then for small inhabitants of the depths it's often fatal. Previously, lion's mane jellyfish were considered a relatively small species with a limited habitat. Today, however, they're increasingly found in new locations, which at first glance is a good sign, since the species is not becoming extinct. But on the other hand, it doesn't bode well. The fact is that the lion's mane jellyfish can strongly imbalance the environment and destroy the microflora of seas and oceans that are new to them. Squid from Japan. If any of you happen to be in the salty waters of the seas and oceans, know that you have a chance to encounter a squid. For example, divers from Japan were doing their favorite activity and went down to the depths near the city of Tsuyoka. Quite quickly, they saw the first and, as it turned out, the most important guest of the program. A huge squid, the body length of which exceeded 8.2 feet. This is a unique phenomenon because squids, especially large ones, rarely come to the surface, let alone coming close to the shore and people. This isn't the first time I've watched this video, but I'm still scared to watch this monster of the depths. It's creepy to watch how it slowly swims in the water and moves its tentacles. I'm afraid to imagine how uncomfortable the divers were at that moment. How would you react if you were shown a bat like this? I think everyone's reaction would be about the same. The author of these pictures lives in the Philippines, and he often told his friends that he had abnormally large bats, but few believed him. So one day he decided to prove the opposite to his friend and to the world in general. He went outside and took the right pictures. His pictures did indeed show a rather large mammal that was dozing with its head down. The photo immediately caused a lot of jokes about how such a big bat was the result of a radioactive man's bite. A little time passed, and a picture was posted in the comments where the animal really looks like it's the size of the guy standing next to it. The culprit of the situation, which scared the entire internet community, was the giant golden-crowned flying fox, a mammal of the megabat family. Its wingspan reaches 5.5 feet, but despite its size, it has a rather meek and gentle disposition, eats fruits, and lives exclusively in the Philippines. What a catch! In this video, the group of fishermen was doing their usual and favorite thing. They were testing their luck by casting a huge net deep into the river and moving it through most of the area. Usually, for such a move, guys catch a lot of fish, but this time a curious surprise was waiting for them. Guys caught a giant snake which was hidden under a veil of fish. The creeping creature was clearly unhappy with this, but there was nothing it could do about it. Even giants like it get into trouble sometimes. It's unknown how the authors of the video dealt with the snake, whether they kept it for themselves or released it into the wild, but they were clearly surprised by such a catch because no one had ever encountered such large snakes before. If the previous guys who were fiddling with the snake had everything for the first time, but it was still safe, then the encounter with the underwater inhabitant in the next video clearly did not bode well. The fact is that on one of the farms, after the water broke the banks and flooded the area, a 16-foot-long crocodile appeared, a predator which at any time can leave the water and attack someone. In short, it was really dangerous. Not surprisingly, the farmers decided to call in a special crocodile catching service which promised to handle the reptile. Did they succeed? Yes, the result was positive. Not without difficulty, but still people dragged the toothy and hungry crocodile to dry land, closed its eyes so it wouldn't worry, and began to prepare it for transportation. I wonder if after watching this story, there will be at least one person who will think, why pay money to some service? I would have handled it myself. Sawfish. Yes, there is such a sea creature. Sawfish appeared 80 million years later than sharks. This sea creature is much larger than dangerous sharks and grows up to 23 feet in length. Sawfish have no whiskers, their saws are symmetrical, and they live in sea or brackish water. Such a giant weighs up to 5,300 pounds. In this video, people caught sight of not the largest or the famous sawfish, but it still makes you wonder. The creature was more than 16 feet long. I wonder how strong and ready for such loads should the fishing line be. And the funny thing is, even the so-called saw didn't help the fish avoid falling into the trap. By the way, do you even know why these fish have such a long nose? It turns out that in addition to its function as a weapon, it also serves as an excellent sensory antenna. The bone outgrowth is studded with electrosensitive receptors that pick up the slightest change in electric background in the water and create a three-dimensional picture around the fish. The locator evaluates the size and distance to the prey, preventing it from hiding in muddy water or sand. As it swims up to its prey, the sawfish makes several sharp strikes from the side, tearing the flesh apart with its sharp teeth. This helps both in hunting and in defense. Sawfish have to fight off large sharks and other dangerous marine animals. By the way, if any of you were worried about the fate of this fish, about the fact that it was caught unfairly, you can relax. The fisherman in the video released the underwater inhabitant immediately after the filming ended. Now let's look at how people caught a tiger shark. It happened in the Bahamas completely by accident. The authors of the video were fishing for much smaller fish, having a great time, when suddenly their fishing line literally began to fall apart. They realized that some huge fish had taken the bait. After waiting a bit, everyone on the boat was shocked. People saw a 1,000-pound tiger shark with their own eyes. Just look at those teeth and how big and strong she is. No smaller fish has a chance of surviving against it, let alone people. Let me tell you right away, the authors of this video weren't interested in the shark in terms of profit or food. They just fished it out, filmed it, watched it, and then cut the line, releasing it back into its native environment. Palm thief. If you think that only pigs can be gigantic, you are deeply mistaken. In fact, there are many other, no less amazing creatures in nature, including representatives of crustaceans. For example, a species called the palm thief. This monster lives near the sea, in the tropics on the islands of the Indian and Western Pacific Oceans. It often visits local residents, causing quite a stir. It'd be logical to think that there's nothing much the thief can do. I mean, it's just a crab. But in this case, it's not so simple. The palm thief's size is phenomenal. An adult can weigh 9 pounds. But I don't think that this is a very large and hearty appetizer for beer. It's quite the opposite. The giant knows how to stand up for itself. Its claws are so strong that with one bite, the crab is able to break the offender's phalanx. In addition, it doesn't follow the rules of its crustacean relatives and doesn't hide from problems. The palm thief is used to solving all problems immediately. That's why when it was born and lived underwater for a while, realizing that this was not the best environment for it, the crab grew full-fledged lungs and became a land dweller. The gills it breathed through as a baby eventually stopped functioning on their own. It's called the thief partly for nothing. No, it doesn't steal fruit from palm trees. Rather, it was human imagination. In fact, this crab just drags anything in sight into its house. Doesn't matter if it's edible or not. Did you call the world's largest frog? No? Well, it's here anyway, all the way from Africa. Meet the Goliath frog. The length of its body can reach 12.5 inches, and along with its hind legs, it reaches almost 3.2 feet. At the same time, it weighs more than 7 pounds. The animal lives in the waterfalls of fast and full-flowing tropical rivers. Unlike many other frogs that are not afraid of swamps, the Goliath frog likes the water to be crystal clear and full of oxygen. It's believed that this is the reason why it's managed to reach such an amazing size with evolution. But don't think that arriving at its habitat, you'll immediately see this beautiful creature. That's not true. Goliath frogs are quite secretive. The gray color helps the creature blend in with the equally gray rocks. Everything's okay with reproduction in Goliath frogs. During the dry season, the female lays on the rocks more than 10,000 eggs with a diameter of just 0.1 to 0.2 inches. It would seem that there should be no problem with the population, but despite this, the frog is still gradually disappearing from the face of the earth. This is due to tourists hungry for delicacies who are ready to pay huge sums of money for a large and rare individual. Japanese giant salamander. The name of this creature speaks for itself. It feels like it came to us straight from the Harry Potter movies or some other mystical cinematic universe. But it's actually a real amphibian from real life. The weight of this shapeless substance can reach 77 pounds, and its length is about 5 feet. However, this doesn't mean that there cannot be larger individuals in nature. Salamanders grow literally all their lives, so the main old ones can surpass the last record holders in terms of size. It's a mistake to think that they're just a liquid flatbread that can be pierced with a finger or other oblong object. In fact, their skin is lumpy, hard, and covered in mucus. Otherwise, the current will just smash them against the rocks and they could say goodbye to their amazing appearance. You can't learn too much about them. It's all about their reclusive lifestyle. They're not used to being seen. They sit somewhere on the bottom, guard the area, and if possible, catch creatures that swim by. Their hunting looks like suction, and as a rule, the food is not chewed but digested inside. Such a miracle lives a very long time, perhaps up to 100 years, but no detailed studies have been done. Here's an interesting fact. These salamanders are able to regenerate lost limbs, which makes researchers study these creatures more carefully and attentively. Kakapo. Unusual parrots have entered the chat. Nocturnal flightless birds endemic to New Zealand. According to DNA studies, the kakapo belongs to the oldest surviving family of the parrot family. To date, it's the only flightless parrot and at the same time the heaviest one. But how does it manage to survive on land? Let's find it out. So the first thing that attracts attention is, of course, a strong gray beak. The parrot needs to grind food and absorb it with its small throat, which, by the way, is surprising for such a relatively large bird that weighs up to 9 pounds and has a body length of 24 inches. The diet of the kakapo is quite simple. Basically, it includes berries and pollen. The kakapo flies, or rather glides, from one place to another in search of the best food. Its wings help it in this. Although the kakapo cannot fly, it is able to glide from one branch to another or to soften the fall by spreading its wings. But despite the fact that this bird wishes no harm to anyone, its condition is not enviable. It's on the verge of extinction. The main reason for this is the activity of rodents introduced by humans, as well as the destruction and alteration of their range by humans and ungulates introduced to the islands of New Zealand. In 2004, the situation only worsened as the birds were also exposed to a new virus. As a result, there are only about 250 of them left today. Giant African land snail. Snails can be huge too. This strange creature, as if coming to us from another planet, has two pairs of horns, the first of which are olfactory, and at the ends of another pair there are beady eyes. The eyes work normally, but they're not as simple as it may seem. They're configured for autofocus and for recognizing objects at a distance of only 9.3 inches. But not everything about these snails is so small. For example, they have a gigantic number of teeth. There are about 20,000 of them. Of course, they're very small. They're used by the snail to eat all sorts of green goodies. After such a dinner, the giant African land snail, like all its relatives, secretes mucus used by some experts in cosmetology. Just imagine, people put these giants on their faces. Would you dare to do something like that? Personally, I wouldn't. After all, these creatures can even eat bones to get some calcium. Now I'll tell you about the only member of the vulture genus, which is common in the Andes and on the Pacific coast of South America. It's not difficult to guess that this is why the bird is called the Andean condor. For the first time, this bird was described in the 10th edition of Systema Naturae in 1758. But rock paintings depicting the condor appeared 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, and Europeans first encountered the condor and described it in 1553. The locals are convinced that this bird is the ruler of the upper world, and it's hard to disagree with them. After all, this beautiful bird usually doesn't go below 10,000 feet above sea level. It weighs up to 33 pounds, and the length of adult birds is, on average, 43 inches. With such size, the condor cannot become an agile flyer. The condor is not able to take off from the ground without a run, but it doesn't need it. It's used to living somewhere high. The condor takes a single leap of faith and accelerates. At great speed, it catches the wind currents and, even without frequent flapping of its wings, perfectly flies on the trajectory it needs. Despite its formidable appearance and impressive size, our South American friend feeds exclusively on carrion. This bird doesn't eat neither babies nor their animals. Yes, it's not the most honorable niche, but local animals respect the condor for this very reason. Forest sanitarians are needed everywhere and at all times. Although perhaps this respect is faked, since the animals simply don't want to mess with the giant. After all, its powerful beak can crush the bone of the opponent in one movement, and no one would like that. In general, the condor usually doesn't care about other animals, but it has special relationship with wolves and cougars. The condor can take away their prey, which they've been searching for so long, and make them work hard again. Interestingly, because of that very beak and the bird's enormous size, no one can do anything against it in response. No doubt pigs are quite large animals, but there are some bigger ones. Now I'll tell you why hippos are the most dangerous animals in Africa. Wrong hood. This is how I'd characterize the following situation. One crocodile got into the water with 30 hippos hanging out. I don't know what the reptile was hoping for, since it loses to the hippo in almost everything. Let's take weight, for example. If a crocodile weighs about a ton, and this is considered close to the maximum, then for a hippo, the weight of 3 tons is normal. All in all, what everyone expected happened in the video. The hippos gave a real chase to the crocodile, squeezing it out of their territory. The crocodile, though bruised, still walked away alive. I think it realized after that incident that it shouldn't do that anymore. If you think that hippos are only capable of attacking one predator in bloats, you're sadly mistaken. Here's an example of a hippo that attacked 3 lions at once. I don't know why they provoked it. Either they came to the territory or the big animal was just very angry. But in any case, the lions were afraid to engage in a fight, even if it was unequal in the number of participants. In the end, the hippo decided to stop chasing the lions. However, it could run for a long time. It wouldn't even break a sweat. In case you don't know, hippos have no sweat glands. But they're the only owners of the so-called skin glands, which secrete a thick red mucus secret. This mass allows hippos to protect themselves from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. Hippos spend most of their lives in the water and usually only leave the pond at night to search for food. In this video, however, they emerge from the water to perform one curious maneuver. At first, one of the hippos was being pestered by a rhino, which approached the water and clearly wanted something. A little time passed and the picture changed dramatically. Now the rhino was standing by the water and the 2 hippos surrounded it from the shore. In the end, one of the animals decided to ram to move like a tank, and it succeeded. The rhino went down, and then I'm not sure how it all ended, because the video ended. Nevertheless, I think it's easy to guess the outcome of this fight. A fight between 2 hippos. In fact, this doesn't occur too often, since these animals almost always treat each other normally and do not sort things out. Nevertheless, the creatures in this video clearly didn't share something. And if to be more exact, they didn't share the female that's in the side and watches the performance with pleasure. It watches how hippos open their mouths to almost 180 degrees and try to catch the enemy in a very dangerous trap. Watching them fight's always cool as the interest is never lost. There's literally a kind of suspense the whole time. Which animal will still manage to strike first? And will the opponent be able to dodge? As we can see, one of the hippos managed to grab the head of the other. They went underwater and, in the end, the one that got the advantage took advantage of it in an awesome way. The female got to it, and the male, after the fight, decided not to lose a minute and immediately got down to business. Impala. This is the kind of African antelope that prefers places close to water sources. This is kind of a plus since the impala avoids contact with small predators that are difficult to see in the grass. But at the same time, this gets the animal into another, no less safe, aquatic environment. An environment where, at any moment, a hippo can sneak up on you and leave you no chance for survival. Literally, everyone there understood what was about to happen, both the man behind the camera in the distance and the lion drinking water on the shore. Everyone except the impala that was looking the other way. A hippo swam up to it and immobilized the poor animal with one bite from its back. It inflicted so much damage that the prey could no longer move normally and physically would not be able to swim away. What happened next was a matter of technique. A bite or two and the impala will no longer move at all. In any case, the lion that was watching from the side and other animals in the area shouldn't relax. After all, an adult hippo can eat from 110 to 220 pounds. According to European standards, the daily dose for the hippo is defined as 181 pounds. This means that one impala is obviously not enough for it, and the next prey could be one of the observers from the shore. One versus everyone. That's a way of describing the following video. It shows the strength and will to live of a solitary hippo. Although their natural habitat is water, hippos are not bad on land. One night, the hippo encountered a pride of lions. The predators were on their way back from a hunt. Judging by their behavior, the hunt was unsuccessful and they remained hungry. But lo and behold, a lone hippopotamus is right on the course. Is that a gift of fate? The lions began to chase the big beast. They caught up with it, surrounded it, jumped on its back, and tried to do some damage. But this hippo didn't give a damn. By the way, do you know that the hippo's skin is one of the thickest in the world, with a thickness of 1.5 inches? In addition, the skin makes up 15% of the total body weight. Now it's clear why the lions couldn't do anything about the hippo. Several times the scenario was repeated in which the hippo escaped from the lions, and the latter caught up with it and jumped on top of it again. This went on until the hippo decided to fight back. It turned to its side in a flash and grabbed the head of one of the lions. It seemed as if it'd crush it like a watermelon, but somehow the lion managed to get out of that death grip. As a result, the lions were left without their prey for the second time that night. Moreover, instead, they only acquired new problems in the form of serious wounds of their congener. So serious, in fact, that even when other lions licked it, it felt painful. And given the many other wounds sustained during that attack on the hippo, it was likely that the lion would soon pass away. The future warrior. That's what I'd call this cute and tiny hippo that encountered a rhino that was several times bigger than it was. It was at a watering hole, and the hippo obviously didn't like the rhino encroaching on its territory. Even though the hippo's still small, even though it's physically unable to oppose the rhino, it certainly had a lot of courage and self-confidence. Personally, I've never seen such babies scaring adults in the wild before. I think this behavior of the little hippo proves that once again, despite the cute and somewhat harmless appearance of hippos, one should not believe these creatures. Their aggressiveness and boldness behind it all. While you're still watching the hippo's attempts, let me tell you this. Few people know, but there are pygmy hippos in nature. These babies grow up to 30 to 32 inches in height and weigh about 400 pounds. And this is about 15 times less than their adult relatives. And newborn pygmy hippos are the size of a house cat. The cases of hippo attacks on humans are also very frequent. The hippo, according to some data, is the most dangerous animal for humans in Africa. Significantly more people die from its attacks than from attacks by lions, buffaloes, or leopards. With the case of lions, you somehow expect an attack. The same situation with leopards and other predators, but a hippo can literally jump out of nowhere and stir the pot. That's exactly what happened in this video. The animal flew out of the water as if it were not a multi-ton huge creature but a nimble dolphin and tried to grab people. The shooting stopped at the same moment, but it's known that everyone remained unharmed and suffered just slight shock. Here's another case of a hippo trying to attack people. However, maybe in this situation it rather didn't like the boat because it flew into it so hard from under the water that it was something unbelievable. The people almost flew out of their transport and miraculously managed to keep their balance. Feeding hippos is a very fascinating and unusual process. At least because with their teeth and jaws in general, hippos are able to crush a pumpkin or a watermelon, as if these were not hard food but some grapes. Scary to imagine what it's like for the prey of this creature that end up in its mouth. Speaking of the hippo in its mouth, did you know that the teeth of these creatures are considered to be the hardest naturally occurring mineral on the planet? However, they almost completely wear out by old age. An adult hippo has 36 teeth with pronounced fangs, and its jaws open 5 feet. Not surprisingly, the gazelle, which the animal saw near the shore, had not the slightest chance of survival. The hippo ran very quickly to its prey and grabbed it with its powerful teeth. The gazelle was powerless from the first seconds in its mouth. In addition, the hippo's congeners came running to the rescue. All of them wanted to eat the gazelle and even almost snatched the prey from the jaws of the main hunter, but it managed to keep the right to eat the gazelle for itself. The hippo slowly but steadily dragged the gazelle underwater so that no one else could see it, and was satisfied to the full. And now I'll show you animals that can eat prey many times larger than themselves. Bullfrog. When we think of frogs, we usually imagine small singing creatures, and we hardly imagine such a giant. The bullfrog is a genus of amphibian that's notable for its large size. Some frogs of this genus can reach 10 inches in length and weigh more than 1 pound. Gnats and flies alone cannot feed such a body, so bullfrogs don't hesitate to eat large prey. For example, they can even eat their own relatives, the flying frogs, which are also large. Within a few hours, a bullfrog is capable of eating another frog, even if that one is larger than it. The same applies to large bats and scorpions. Bullfrogs eat them with the same incredible appetite. Smaller creatures also get it. For example, mice that bullfrogs eat in a couple of seconds. The speed of the attack is amazing. If no one else is around, the bullfrog can eat insects, mollusks, or spiders. Woebegong. You have to agree that although the bullfrog is much more massive than the average frog, at least it looks like a frog. The woebegong is a different case. Biologically, it's a real shark, except that it looks more like a hybrid of a flatfish and a stingray. Though it has a little bit of a shark admixture, yes. Like many other sharks, the woebegong is voracious, and sometimes it goes over the top. For example, a woebegong can eat a huge stingray, which is hardly inferior to it in size. But the predator doesn't care. It will try just to eat it in pieces, but not swallow it whole. But in general, these mustachioed creatures eat smaller animals living on the bottom, all sorts of cartilaginous fish, cephalopods, and so on. By the way, this shark is not deadly to humans, but can cause them a wound when disturbed. Black swallower. Next up is a creature that could be called the most voracious in the entire ocean. Look at the belly of the black swallower. It's not natural. This is what it looks like when the sea monster swallows something. The black swallower grows up to only 10 inches in length, but can eat prey which is twice as long and 10 times heavier than it. No wonder that after such a big meal, the black swallower's belly stretches so much. It's just amazing how it doesn't burst. The creature lives at a huge depth of up to 2.5 miles, so it's problematic for scientists to dive to it and catch the process of eating on camera. Basically, scientists know about the voraciousness of the black swallower from the individuals that are thrown to the surface. By the way, they're thrown out because of the same voracity. Gluttons sometimes cannot fully digest such a large prey. Air accumulates inside, and it pushes the black swallower to the surface. This is the case when greed is really destructive. That's all, guys. What superpower would you like to have? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.